Have you ever wondered how some people speak English so fluently? Do you sometimes feel like your English isn't as smooth as you'd like it to be? Maybe you find yourself searching for the right words in the middle of a conversation, or you hesitate before speaking because you're not sure if you're saying things correctly. Does this sound familiar? Well, you're not alone, and today, we're going to talk about how to speak English fluently, step by step. One of the first things to understand is that fluency isn't just about knowing a lot of vocabulary or being able to speak without making mistakes. It's about feeling confident enough to express your thoughts clearly and without too much hesitation. Fluency comes with practice, patience, and a few simple strategies that anyone can use. One of the easiest ways to start improving your fluency is by speaking as much as possible. The more you speak, the more natural it will feel. It might sound simple, but practicing speaking is the key to developing fluency. This could mean having conversations with friends, classmates, or even talking to yourself about your day. Even if you make mistakes, keep talking. Mistakes are just part of the process, and every time you speak, you get better at it. Another great way to improve your fluency is by listening to English as much as you can. The more you hear English being spoken, the more familiar the language will become. Whether you're listening to podcasts, watching TV shows, or simply listening to conversations around you, the goal is to immerse yourself in English. Pay attention to the way native speakers use different phrases, how they connect their ideas, and how they pronounce words. This exposure will help you speak more naturally. It's also important to expand your vocabulary. The more words you know, the easier it will be to express yourself clearly. You don't have to memorize long lists of words. Instead, focus on learning words that you will use often in your daily life. This could include words for describing your emotions, your hobbies, or words used in conversations at work or school. The key is to learn words in context, so you can remember how to use them when speaking. Another useful technique is to repeat what you hear. If you're listening to a podcast or watching a movie, try repeating sentences or phrases exactly as you hear them. This will help improve your pronunciation and rhythm. Try to mimic the way native speakers speak, including their tone and intonation. This will help you sound more natural and fluent when you speak. When you speak, don't be afraid to pause for a moment to collect your thoughts. It's okay to take a second to think about what you want to say next. Many people think that speaking fluently means never pausing, but that's not true. Taking short pauses can actually help you speak more clearly and sound more confident. It's also essential to practice thinking in English. This might be one of the hardest steps, but it's one of the most effective. Instead of translating your thoughts from your native language into English, try to think directly in English. Start by practicing simple phrases or sentences in your head, like, "What will I eat for lunch today?" or "I need to buy some groceries." As you get better at thinking in English, it will become easier to speak more fluently without needing to translate. A great way to improve fluency is to use English in your daily life. Try labeling things in your house with English words, or write your to-do list in English. The more you use English in your daily activities, the more it becomes a natural part of your life. This will help you become more comfortable using the language in real conversations. Also, try to find language partners, or join language exchange groups where you can practice speaking English with others. Speaking with people who are also learning English can be a great way to build confidence and improve your speaking skills. If you don't have a partner, speaking to yourself can also be helpful. You can practice describing what you see around you, talking about your day, or explaining things to yourself in English. Don't forget to focus on pronunciation. Speaking clearly is just as important as knowing the right words. If you're not sure how to pronounce a word, look it up or listen to native speakers saying it. Many apps and websites offer pronunciation guides and audio examples. Practicing these sounds will help your speech sound more fluent and help others understand you more easily. One thing that often gets in the way of fluency is worrying about making mistakes. It's easy to become discouraged when we don't get everything right. But remember, no one speaks perfectly all the time. Native speakers make mistakes too. Instead of worrying about perfection, focus on making yourself understood. Fluency doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means being able to communicate effectively and confidently. To further improve your English fluency, it's important to also focus on the different types of conversations you'll encounter in your daily life. Each situation requires a slightly different approach, and practicing these specific scenarios can help you feel more comfortable when speaking. Practicing conversations in different situations fluency doesn't only come from learning grammar or vocabulary. It also comes from understanding how to engage in conversations in different situations. For example, a conversation at the coffee shop is very different from a conversation at a job interview. Understanding the context helps you tailor your language to fit the situation, making your speech sound more natural and appropriate. At the coffee shop. When you're ordering a coffee or chatting with a barista, it's important to be polite and clear. For example, you could say, "Can I have a cappuccino, please?" Or, "I'll have a medium latte with no sugar." These are simple phrases, but saying them with confidence is key. You don't need to overthink it. Just be friendly and polite. Practicing these small interactions will help you sound more fluent, as these types of conversations happen quickly and often. In a job interviews require a more formal tone, but they also involve conversations where you need to explain your experiences, skills, and goals. Practice answering common interview questions like, "Tell me about yourself," or "Why do you want to work for this company?" These types of questions require you to think on your feet, but the more you practice, the easier it will be to answer confidently. You can also learn to ask thoughtful questions like, "What is the company culture like?" Or, "What are the opportunities for growth?" This helps you sound professional and fluent in job interviews. Casual conversations with friends. Your conversations will naturally be more relaxed. It's a great opportunity to practice speaking freely, without worrying too much about mistakes. You might talk about plans for the weekend, something you watched recently, or a book you're reading. For example, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" Or, "Have you seen that new movie yet?" are simple phrases, but they can easily lead to interesting conversations. Being able to have these casual exchanges smoothly will improve your fluency, as these conversations happen quickly and often without much preparation. Overcoming the fear of making mistakes. One of the biggest obstacles to speaking fluently is the fear of making mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when speaking, especially when learning a new language, and that's completely normal. Instead of focusing on perfection, focus on communication. If you make a mistake, just correct it and move on. Fluency isn't about speaking perfectly, it's about getting your message across and keeping the conversation flowing. In fact, making mistakes is a sign that you're trying, and that's how you learn. A good strategy is to shift your mindset. Rather than viewing mistakes as failures, view them as opportunities to improve. For example, if you use the wrong verb tense or pronunciation, you'll remember it next time. This process of trial and error is essential for growth, and it's perfectly fine to make mistakes along the way. Using technology to improve fluency. In today's world, technology provides many tools to help improve your English fluency. Apps, websites, and online courses offer a wide range of resources for learners of all levels. One useful method is using language exchange apps, where you can connect with native speakers or other learners. You can practice speaking with someone in real time, and they can correct your mistakes, helping you improve your fluency. Another great tool is using speech recognition software, which helps you practice pronunciation. Apps like Google Translate or language learning apps like Duolingo allow you to speak into your phone, and they will give you feedback on your pronunciation. This is an excellent way to check how well you're pronouncing words and make improvements where necessary. You can also watch videos, movies, and TV shows in English. Choose ones with subtitles, and pause them when you hear a new word or phrase. Try to imitate how the characters speak, paying attention to their tone, rhythm, and intonation. This practice will help you sound more natural and fluent in your speech. It's also useful to mimic phrases and expressions that native speakers often use in conversations. Learning through reading and writing. In addition to listening and speaking, reading and writing also play an important role in developing fluency. Reading helps expand your vocabulary and exposes you to different sentence structures. Start with books or articles that are slightly above your current level, and try to read a little every day. You can even read aloud to practice your speaking. Try reading short stories, news articles, or blogs about topics you enjoy. After reading, try summarizing what you've learned in your own words, either by speaking or writing it down. Writing is another powerful tool for improving fluency. Keep a daily journal in English. Write about your day, your thoughts, or what you're planning to do. By practicing writing in English regularly, you'll begin to think in English and express yourself more clearly when speaking. It's also a great way to learn new words and grammar structures, which you can then use in conversations. The importance of listening and imitation fluency is deeply connected to listening. If you want to speak fluently, you need to expose yourself to as much English as possible. This will help you get used to different accents, speeds of speech, and cultural expressions. The more you listen, the more your brain will pick up the natural flow of the language, which will make it easier to speak. One technique to help with listening and speaking fluency is imitation. This means mimicking the sounds, rhythm, and patterns of speech that you hear from native speakers. You can do this by watching videos, listening to podcasts, or even repeating phrases from movies or TV shows. Try to imitate the speaker's intonation, pauses, and the way they stress certain words. This practice will help you sound more fluent and natural when speaking. Setting realistic goals for fluency. It's important to set small, realistic goals when working towards fluency. Fluency doesn't happen overnight, and it requires consistent practice. Start with simple goals like speak for 5 minutes every day in English. Have at least one conversation in English each week. Learn and use 5 new words every day. Watch one English TV show episode without subtitles. By setting these kinds of achievable goals, you'll steadily build your fluency and gain confidence in your speaking ability. Over time, you'll notice that you can speak longer and more naturally without thinking too much about grammar or vocabulary. Surround yourself with English. The best way to improve your fluency is to surround yourself with English as much as possible. Create an environment where English is constantly present. Change the language settings on your phone or computer to English. Follow English-speaking social media accounts or YouTube channels. Listen to English radio stations or podcasts while you're commuting or exercising. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the easier it will be to start thinking and speaking in English naturally. Don't forget the power of confidence. Fluency is as much about mindset as it is about practice. Confidence plays a huge role in how fluently you speak. Even if you're unsure of your grammar or vocabulary, try to speak with confidence. If you speak slowly and clearly, people will understand you better, and you'll feel more comfortable. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become, and fluency will naturally follow. To further enhance your fluency, it's crucial to focus on specific techniques and strategies that can elevate your speaking abilities and make English feel more natural in everyday interactions. The key lies in consistent practice, active engagement with the language, and gradually pushing yourself to communicate in various settings, no matter how challenging they might initially seem. Let's explore more ways to make your English speaking practice more effective and how to deal with specific challenges that learners often face. Creating real-life speaking opportunities. To develop fluency, you need to create opportunities to speak English regularly, and there are many practical ways to do this. If you don't have native speakers around you, try to find a language partner or join online communities where you can practice speaking. Language exchange platforms allow you to connect with people from different parts of the world who are also learning English or are native speakers. One useful strategy is to participate in language meetups, which can often be found in local areas or online. These meetups involve groups of people who come together to practice English or other languages in an informal setting. Joining such groups gives you the chance to practice speaking in a real-world social context, which is vital for fluency. Regularly talking to others in English will reduce your anxiety and improve your confidence. Another great way to practice speaking is by shadowing native speakers. Shadowing involves listening to an English speaker and then repeating exactly what they say, trying to imitate their pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. You can do this with videos, podcasts, or even YouTube tutorials. This method helps you become more comfortable with the natural flow of English, including how words are connected in sentences and how they sound in real-time conversations. It's also a great way to learn colloquial expressions and informal language, which are essential for sounding more fluent. Practice speaking through stories. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to enhance your speaking skills. When you tell a story, you practice structuring sentences, using tenses, and adding emotions or opinions, all of which are important for fluency. You can start by telling simple stories about your day or events from your past. Over time, try to incorporate more complex ideas, using new vocabulary and varied sentence structures. If you're unsure of what to talk about, you can take inspiration from the things you're interested in. For example, share a recent experience you had, explain how to do something, or talk about an exciting trip you went on. The more you practice telling stories, the easier it will become to speak fluidly and naturally in a conversation. Plus, storytelling helps you connect with others and makes speaking English feel more enjoyable. Learning through reading aloud. While listening is crucial for fluency, speaking aloud is just as important. Reading aloud helps reinforce pronunciation and improves your ability to speak smoothly and confidently. When you read out loud, you focus on articulation, pacing, and stress patterns, which are all key components of fluency. You also practice intonation, how your voice rises and falls, which is essential for sounding natural in English. To maximize this exercise, choose content that you enjoy. You might start with simple texts like children's books or news articles, and as you gain confidence, challenge yourself with more complex materials like novels or academic articles. The key is to read regularly and pay attention to the rhythm and flow of the language. After reading a passage, try to summarize it in your own words, which will also enhance your speaking fluency. Learning phrasal verbs and idiomatic expressions. An essential part of speaking fluently is mastering phrasal verbs and idiomatic expressions. These are commonly used by native speakers in everyday conversations and often don't follow the rules of traditional grammar. For example, instead of saying, "I'm thinking about going," a native speaker might say, "I'm considering going." Or instead of saying, "I am really tired," they may say, "I'm beat." Learning these expressions will help you speak more like a native speaker and will make your conversations feel more natural. It's important to learn them in context, not just as isolated phrases. The more you hear them used in conversations, movies, or songs, the easier it will be to use them yourself. To learn idiomatic expressions and phrasal verbs, make it a habit to write them down whenever you come across a new one. Then, practice using them in your own sentences and conversations. Over time, these phrases will become part of your natural vocabulary, helping you speak English more fluently. Engaging in role-playing activities. Role-playing is a fun and effective way to practice fluency in specific situations. Engaging in daily speaking practice. One of the best ways to improve fluency is by speaking every day. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, daily practice helps you build confidence and keeps your skills sharp. If you can't find someone to speak with, try speaking to yourself. Describe your day, talk about your plans, or explain your thoughts in English. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll become with using the language. Start by speaking slowly and clearly, focusing on what you're saying rather than how quickly you're saying it. As you get better, try to speak at a faster pace while maintaining accuracy and clarity. This will help you develop the fluidity needed for everyday conversations. Understanding cultural nuances in conversations. Speaking English fluently also means understanding cultural nuances. Many English speakers use expressions, gestures, or tones of voice that carry meaning beyond just the words they say. For example, in some cultures, people use indirect language to show politeness, while in others, directness is valued more. By learning about cultural differences, you can tailor your conversations to fit the context, making them more meaningful and respectful. This understanding will also help you pick up on subtleties in conversations, such as sarcasm, humor, or empathy, which are essential for fluency. Building your confidence is a key factor in speaking English fluently. You could know all the grammar rules and vocabulary, but if you don't believe in your ability to communicate, it can hold you back. Overcoming your fear of making mistakes is essential. Remember, language learning is a journey, and making mistakes is part of that process. Embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow. Practice positive self-talk and encourage yourself to speak, even if you're not perfect. The more you practice and expose yourself to different speaking situations, the more confident you'll become. Eventually, speaking English will feel natural and effortless. To make learning English more engaging and fun, storytelling can be one of the most powerful techniques. Telling stories helps you use English in real-life situations, and it's a great way to practice speaking fluently without feeling like you're studying grammar rules. Let's explore how storytelling can improve your fluency and provide real-life examples of how you can use English in everyday life. The power of storytelling in learning English. When we tell a story, we're not just practicing vocabulary and grammar, but also practicing how to organize our thoughts and communicate them clearly. Storytelling is a natural way to express ideas, describe events, and share personal experiences. By practicing storytelling, you improve not only your speaking skills, but also your ability to think in English. For example, let's imagine you're telling a story about your weekend. You might say, "I went to the park with my friends, we played soccer, and then we had ice cream. After that, we walked around the park and saw a beautiful sunset." This simple story helps you practice using the past tense, describing actions and connecting ideas together. Using personal experiences for storytelling. One way to practice storytelling is by talking about your personal experiences. Think about a memorable moment in your life, like a vacation, a celebration, or even a funny incident that happened at work or school. When you share a story about your own life, You don't have to worry about memorizing complex vocabulary or phrases. You simply use the words you already know, making the conversation feel more natural. Let's say you want to tell a story about a trip you took to the beach. You could say, "Last summer, I went to the beach with my family. The weather was amazing. We swam in the ocean, built sandcastles, and ate a lot of ice cream. It was so much fun." This kind of story helps you practice using time markers, like "last summer," and expressing your feelings. It was so much fun. When you speak about something you know well, like a favorite place or activity, it makes it easier to speak without searching for words. Plus, it's a great way to add details to your story, making it more interesting. Creating imaginary stories. Another fun way to practice storytelling is by creating imaginary stories. This is a great way to build your vocabulary and imagination. You can make up stories about anything you like, such as a journey to space, meeting a famous person, or having an adventure in a new city. The more creative you are, the more words and expressions you'll learn. For example, let's say you're telling a story about meeting a famous musician. You could say, "One day I was walking in the park and suddenly I saw my favorite singer. I couldn't believe it. I went up to them and asked for a photo. They smiled and said yes. We talked about their music and it was a dream come true." This imaginary story helps you practice using vocabulary related to music, emotions, and daily activities. Using dialogue in stories to sound more fluent, it's helpful to include dialogue in your stories. When you add conversations to your stories, it helps you practice the way people speak in real life. For example, let's say you're telling a story about a time you went shopping. You could include a conversation with a shopkeeper. "I asked the shopkeeper, 'Do you have this shirt in a size medium?' The shopkeeper said, 'Yes, we do. Let me get it for you.' This way, you're not only practicing sentence structure, but also learning how to use common phrases and questions that people use in everyday situations. Using real-life examples, in addition to telling personal or imaginary stories, it's also helpful to think about how English is used in real-life situations. Let's say you're at the airport trying to check in for a flight. You might use phrases like, "Where is the check-in counter?" Or, "I'm here to check in for my flight to New York." Or imagine you're at a coffee shop ordering your favorite drink. You could say, "I'd like a cappuccino, please." Or if you're unsure of what you want, you could ask, "What do you recommend?" This kind of real-life conversation helps you practice vocabulary related to travel, food, and other everyday situations. Practicing with different types of stories. To improve fluency, it's important to practice telling different kinds of stories. While some stories might be about things that happen to you, others can be fictional or even humorous. Telling various types of stories can expand your vocabulary and help you use English in different contexts. Personal stories. These are stories based on real events that happened to you. They could be about a vacation, a birthday party, or a challenging experience you faced at work or school. Personal stories allow you to practice emotions, actions, and reflections. For instance, when telling a personal story about your first job interview, you can practice using phrases like, "I felt nervous," or "I was surprised when they asked me that question." These phrases help you add emotion and personality to your stories, making your English sound more natural. Fictional stories. These stories are not based on real events, and they can be fun and creative. They allow you to imagine situations that may never happen, but still require you to use your vocabulary in new ways. Let's imagine a story where you find a secret door in your house that leads to another world. You could describe the strange creatures you meet, the challenges you face, and how you solve problems using your English. Fictional stories allow you to practice descriptive language, action verbs, and creative thinking. Humorous stories. Humor is another great tool to improve fluency. Telling funny stories allows you to practice making jokes, understanding humor, and using informal language. You could tell a funny story about something that happened when you were learning English, such as mispronouncing a word or misunderstanding a cultural reference. Humor will help you sound more relaxed and natural when speaking, which is important for fluency. Descriptive stories. Descriptive stories involve focusing on details, like describing a place, a person, or an event. For example, you could tell a story about a city you visited and describe its streets, buildings, food, and people. You could say things like, "The streets were filled with colorful markets," or "The food smelled delicious with spices in the air." This type of story helps you practice using adjectives, sensory language, and comparative phrases. By telling descriptive stories, you become more skilled at painting pictures with your words. Creating a story. Framework. Sometimes it can be difficult to start a story, especially when you're not sure what to say. That's why it's useful to have a basic framework in your mind to guide your storytelling. This structure will help you organize your thoughts, which makes it easier to speak fluently. Here's an example of a simple storytelling framework. Introduction. Start by setting the scene. Who, where, and when does the story take place? For example, last summer I went on a trip to the mountains with my family. Problem or event. This is the main part of the story where something happens. What is the problem or situation that makes your story interesting? For example, on the second day, we got lost while hiking in the mountains. Solution or ending. This is where you explain how things were solved or what happened at the end. For example, after a few hours, we found our way back to the campsite and we laughed about it later. This structure helps you stay organized and ensures that your story has a clear beginning, middle, and end. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel to tell stories in this way. Overall, storytelling is a fun and effective way to improve your English fluency. Whether you're telling personal stories, imagining new ones, or sharing real-life experiences, storytelling helps you connect with others and practice the language in an enjoyable way. Keep practicing, and remember, every time you tell a story, you're one step closer to speaking English fluently.